Welcome to Peers, political economic elemental researchers and strategists. At Peers, we stand as your all-in-one partner, adept at steering you through the intricate realms of politics, economics, and business. Join us at Peers. We're our seasoned team with expertise in politics, economy, business, and law is committed to your success. Together, we will navigate the future, making informed decisions that lead to lasting impacts. Follow us on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn to stay informed about how we can help you achieve your goals.
Magandang umaga, maayong buntag. Good morning, everyone. We are excited to introduce to you the political, economic, elemental researchers and strategists. You might want to ask how we all started and what's with the word elemental. The word elemental is nothing close to supernatural, no? But we'd like to emphasize that we are going to look into details. And by details, we are taking off from experience. And our experience, not only as academics, but also as policy workers, as development workers, no? As advocates, no? We have experienced so much difficulty when it comes to using data and even sourcing data. That is the foremost limitation, no? Particularly here in the Philippines. Pag kailangan mo ng data, when it comes to infrastructure, you have to collate it yourself. So instead of fast-tracking policy work, instead of fast-tracking, formulating programs of action, there is always difficulty. We barely even know how many senior citizens we have everywhere. We have no idea exactly how many need feeding, no, at the barangay level. And so many other issues that at the end of the day really boil down to the need for data. And so we thought we start a group that will make really good use of data, not only in terms of using it, but also in collating it and making it available to the public, not only for the use of the academics, but more so for informing the people. And so our mantra really is that true information is true power. Apart from that, you might want to ask, are we media? We are media only to the extent that we are going to go out of our way to inform everyone, to empower them, so that what we see, especially in the social media, is something that we can nuance, something that we can really use for our own purpose. At the end of the day, we don't want to really become subject to misinformation and everything. And so I will introduce our peers to this event. We are 15, all of us, no, in the key functions that peers as a group will do, starting with the economic data. I introduce to you no less than our very experienced peers in this regard, Peer Tony Avila and Peer Nobel Bangsal. Let's start with Peer Tony. Peer Tony, please.
Hello. Welcome to our Facebook Live session. Today, we are excited to introduce you to peers. As Peer Ed said, it's the political, economic, elemental researchers and strategists. Your premier partner in navigating the intricate world of economics and business. At Peers, we offer expert advice and strategic solutions tailored to the unique needs of organizations agencies, and business enterprises. In today's ever-evolving economic landscape, making informed decisions is more crucial than ever. And that's where we come in. Our team of seasoned professionals is dedicated to providing you with actionable economic intelligence, investment insights, and comprehensive market analysis. Whether you're looking to understand the latest economic trends, seeking investment opportunities, or needing guidance on steering your business through challenging times, Peers is here to support you. But our services continue beyond there. We're also public relations and crisis management experts, ensuring that your business survives and even thrives, regardless of the economic climate. Our approach is proactive and cost effective, designed to deliver results that matter to you and your business. Join us as we explore how peers can help your business achieve sustainable growth and success. Let's explore the possibilities together and set your enterprise on the path to economic resilience and prosperity. Welcome to the Pierce family, where your business future is bright. Now I'm introducing to you Pierre Novel. Novel, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Sir Tony. Uh, Good morning. Uh, Siguro can already start discussing siguro yung about the economic data, no? Especially the
Yes.
economic data, and para lang our viewers out there would have some parang appreciation and understanding ano-ano ba yung mga economic data that we are, reading sa newspapers, sa social
I
media.
agree. Yeah, you can, maganda yan, Peer,
Yeah.
no?
So, para lang just an introduction para sa ating mga following this social media. Recently kasi ano ba ngayon, it's already March, so lumabas na yung ating full year economic growth, and fortunately yung even the DOFS, the government is very happy about yung performance natin in 2023. Ang growth natin was at 5.6%, and we are the top performer in ASEAN. We're better than Malaysia, tinalo natin ng Vietnam and Indonesia. So, in terms of growth, tayo pinakamataas. But if you're going to look deeper into the composition of growth, I think this is important para sa ating mga this is where yung information helps not only yung mga ating viewers but also policymakers as well, because if we're going to take it hook, line, and we would be very happy with this development, but if you're going to look deeper at the numbers, like for instance, yung inflation natin, while we are indeed the top performer in ASEAN, yung ating inflation naman po for 2023 is also one of the highest at the same time at 6.0%. And if you're going to look at other indicators, economic indicators like unemployment, while we do have while yung unemployment rate natin was the lowest recorded quite some time, but if you're going to look at job quality, it would appear that yung largest increases in joblessness are in are among the high school graduates. So if you look at these numbers more deeply, there are some items that would, parang give some concerns to us, and especially yung inflation, because inflation has been a major concern among our people. In fact, pag tinignan mo yung mga surveys, one of it, for example, yung sa Bangko Sentral Business Economic Survey, consumer survey, ang number one concern ng mga consumers natin is inflation, and how inflation will proceed, or parang magkano yung inflation natin now and in the next few months or the next year. These are the things that really concerns most of our countrymen, also our policymakers as well. So, tapos pag tinignan mo rin yung foreign domestic investment, makikita natin that in 2022, tayo yung pinakamababang foreign direct investment that recorded compared to the ASEAN countries. So, marami po tayong information that we need to look at para at least mas mapalagi pa natin yung appreciation and understanding natin dito sa ano. That is why I think the group, this group is here to help you parang himayin and unbundle all this information para to give you a more better picture of ano po ang nangyayari sa bansa natin in terms of yung economic performance, at least in a way it also helps build up optimism. We're able to understand all these figures, and I think yun po ang kailangan ng natin moving forward, kasi po there are still many challenges ahead, not only po sa domestic, pero yung po matter concerns across the globe, and these issues and these concerns definitely will impact our performance, as well as paano po mag-i-impact or paano po maapektuhan tayong lahat. So I think these are the things that we need to look at. We have to be parang more discerning with regards to these matters, kasi po very important po sa atin, especially in the next few months, or specifically next year, dahil po next year we will be again going to elect and select a new set of national and local officials, and I think hopefully itong mga issues na ma-raise natin, ma-discuss natin, be at the center of the policy discussion, policy debate, para po lahat po tayo will be able to benefit from this discussion. I think, sir, ganun na muna, Sir Tony. Then,
I suppose, Pierre Lovelo, what you've mentioned is something that we will really zero in, when we talk about the economic chacha that is going on. So these will have a better handle why this is being pushed by our political leaders, whether there is merit to it or not. Because ang daming ingay in the background, that, well, of course, whether we like it or not, this issue is political and therefore will be made political. But at the end of the day, it might be interesting to also understand why is it that this is not the first time that the administration and our political leaders are going to push amendments to the Constitution. So magandang mahimay natin yan. What does inflation, for example, have to do with investment? What does it have to do with prices, for example? Now, at the end of the day, what does it got to do with the revenue that is generated ably by the government. Pag segue natin doon, ngayon napapasok yung capacity ng government. And when we speak of the capacity of the government, we speak of the quality of governance. We're inclined to think that, ito, day-to-day life lang. No, actually, it impacts directly on the capacity of the government to provide us the services that we deserve. This is the reason why we've invited our peers to discuss this in more specific discussion. No? For example, we have Peer Adrian Tamayo, who's based in Davao and has been very much into the issue of Mindanao development. He's not only an academic, but very much a policy and development expert. So let's welcome Peer Adrian and help us understand the goings on in Mindanao and provide us a better vantage point, Peer Adrian, kasi dito sa Manila, ibang tingin palagi. Pagka minention yung Mindanao, parang separate na talaga yung parang iba yan, hindi kami kasali dyan. No? So, perhaps it's best for us to really understand what the issues are and how significant Mindanao is as far as the whole country is concerned.
Yes, maayong buntag, yung adlaw, good morning po sa lahat here. Thank you for the opportunity and sa kay Doc Antonio Aguila rin at sa kay Sir Noel and Progress sa lahat ng maayong buntag. Very true. I have been listening to Sir Pierre Ruben about the discussions of relevant information, relevant data. Particularly in Mindanao, because here in Mindanao, and let me emphasize that there is already the net positive, but we are already all across segments and sectors in the society. In particular, allow me to provide you some figures. First is that 36% of the nation's land dedicated for food production dito po sa Mindanao. And 42% of the national food trade dito po sa Mindanao. 45% of the nation's fish production galing po sa Mindanao. And if we try to look at also the administrative and governance discussion, in Mindanao we have 6 regions. In Mindanao we have 28 provinces. In Mindanao we have 33 cities. In Mindanao we have 422 municipalities. And that covers the 360 square kilometers land size of Mindanao. So what we are saying, malaki po ang potential ng Mindanao. And the current contribution of Mindanao to national GDP is only 17% as compared to all others. But look, tingnan nyo po, the potential of that, we are the nation's food basket, we are the nation's source of fish that you enjoy ngayon, in your lunch. And if you are to look at the share of the Mindanao's budget to the national income pie, we are only getting 12 to 16%. And so therefore, if there would be a closer look, more emphatic way of looking at Mindanao, yung sinasabi ni Pierre Bangsal kanina that we are already becoming one of the biggest earners in terms of growth, mas lalaki pa po yun. Mas bibigat po yung sinasabi natin growth. Because the sources and the resources are coming from the Mindanao. We won't be importing anymore. We won't be getting much of the sources in terms of your food, in terms of your raw materials from our other places. And so therefore, the problem of exchange rate would become as a matter of a problem. So yun po ang sinasabi natin, the context of Mindanao. So yun na nga, sinasabi na pag Mindanao, iba ang naiisip. Well, that is a Mindanao 20 years ago. because the Mindanao that we present to everyone is a Mindanao that is peaceful, is a Mindanao that is beautiful, and a Mindanao that is bountiful. And we could provide through these peers town hall the evidence to that. And what are the evidences? Both anecdotal and scientific. We have the data to provide and convince everyone that when you are in places in Mindanao, you are safe, you are secure, your investments are secure. Let me provide you the macro data to that. There are already 22 honorary consular offices in Mindanao and 4 consular general offices in Mindanao. And very recently, the European Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines invested 1.2 billion. European Chamber is a business. So, and they invested in the bar to improve productivity, to improve transportation, to improve human resource. So yun po ang nangyayari sa Mindanao. It's the net positive. So we encourage you to come, join, invest, and taste the food. Mura lang po dito. Very cheap po yung pomelo namin. Very cheap po yung puracha namin. Very cheap po yung sumpo namin. So we would want to share it to everyone. Dagang salamat. Mayong buntag.
Very lively discussion, Pierre Adrian, in that regard. No, we must be doing something right recently. No, that Mindanao has suddenly surged. No, and as you've rightly pointed out, no, I myself, as Pierre Adrian knows, have been personally a witness to this surge in development in Mindanao, and particularly us in Manila should really look forward to more developments, no, south of the Philippines. But again, going back to the issue of governance, precisely, this is the litmus test of governance, no, whether or not development actually happens. And ulitin ko yung sinabi ni Pierre Novel kanina. At the end of the day, if the economy is healthy, if the economy is vibrant, that means the government is also able to generate as much revenue as possible, and therefore empowering the government further. Why do we need the government that is very powerful? We need the government that is powerful not so much because of sheer power itself, but more in terms of capacity. Lalo na ngayon, naku, alam naman natin, day in, day out, we read, we hear, naku, we feel, no, the news that has something to do with our sovereignty, with our security. You know, in Peers, as a group, we talk about practically anything and everything that has to do with governance. Mamaya, ikikwento ko sa inyo how we will be helpful in empowering you further this coming elections. But more importantly, it is important for us to know really what's happening in the West Philippine Sea. And we are proud to know that we have no less than someone who has really made it his career to understand maritime security. No less than NDCP and Miriam University Professor Reg Torrecampo. Pierre, Reg, take it away and introduce us to very interesting, I have to say, very, very heightened issue on maritime security. Na yung WPS lang, maritime security.
Yeah. Thank you, Pierre Ed. Just I just have to make that caveat. I'm no longer with NDCP. Para lang Pierre din, no. But yeah, thank you, Pierre Ed, no, in mentioning about this importance of talking about our sovereignty, and not just in particular with the West Philippine Sea, but in maritime in general. The Philippines is the second largest archipelagic state, no, just next to Indonesia. And when we look at our geography really, which actually has an impact as well to the way that we govern ourselves. Sabi nga ni Peer Ed kanina, governance is really something that we have to look into, no? There has been studies and reviews, no, of the National Marine Policy in 1994, which is the only mega policy that we had so far when it comes to maritime governance or ocean governance. That sometimes we have the one of the gaps that was mentioned there was really the institutional arrangements when it comes to maritime governance, no. And one weakness apart from institutional arrangements is also the appreciation of the public when it comes to maritime related issues. No, so there is this question. We are the second largest archipelagic state in the world, and yet the way that we look at ourselves is very insular, is very land-based, is very landlocked. No? So there's that aspect of consciousness, archipelagic and maritime consciousness, that is somehow inhibiting our policymakers as well to really push for policies and strategies that would further our maritime security, but also our ocean-based economy. Sabi nga ng mga peers natin kanina, you know, the bedrock really is or the foundation really of any state would be economics. But side by side would also be our ability to exercise jurisdiction and sovereignty on places and areas that we have jurisdiction and sovereignty. And apart from land, no, the Philippines really has jurisdiction to certain extent in its maritime domains, maritime entitlements, especially that we are a party to the United Nations Law of the Sea Convention or UNCLOS, which tells us, which gives us a framework, basically, a governance framework to begin with when it comes to managing our maritime domain. So the West Philippine Sea actually is a good it's a good test. It's a good site for us to really see, you know, to what extent can we exercise our jurisdiction. Of course, territorial and maritime disputes are two different things, and those are the things that we have to be able to clarify with the general public when they look at the West Philippine Sea. These are two very different issues, territorial and maritime issues, because there are certain implications as to what we can do and how we should be dealing with these challenges and sometimes opportunities. So, for instance, this West Philippine Sea has given us a platform for public discourse on maritime security. No, nakita naman natin sa social media, there are a lot of people who are now very much interested to weigh in and to put their thoughts into what's happening in the West Philippines and how can we move forward. Of course, as a democratic country, that's a welcome development because now the public shows interest in a foreign policy and national security issue. You know, and that will actually have an implication as well to the interests of policymakers. Now, this is something that the public is actually interested in, and the public is wanting more from the government to do action. No, but at the same time, I think one of the things that we have to be worried as well about, you know, is when we talk about these issues. These are not entirely something that emotions or irrationality should be the primary drivers of the conversations of the discourse. Yun kasi nakikita natin so far sa social media. It's really emotionally charged, no? And I get that, and we get that because coming from, you know, as a developing country na meron tayong may narrative tayo nakikita of bullying, of, you know, imperialism or colonialism, no? We're very sensitive to that, and culturally, yes, we have that sensitivity, no? But when it comes to discussions on national security and foreign policy, I think it's very important, and na-mention din ni Peer Ed kanina, to also look at the data, no, to look at what really is going on the ground, what really is going on with our relations with certain countries, not just internationally, but also domestically. Kasi meron din mga engagements that are happening in our domestic and even economic sphere, no? So, ano ba yung mga intersections na yon of national security, foreign policy, and domestic? Because the way that we look at foreign policy and domestic, sometimes we compartmentalize. But in reality, especially today, with the issues that we're seeing in the maritime space and in governance, no, maraming mga intersections na hindi natin nakikita that actually would would give us a better sense of where we should be positioning ourselves as an archipelagic and maritime country. No, so yun, period. I think that's something that that the group could offer, no, in terms of really looking at the bigger picture, not just the West Philippine Sea as a myopic, as a isolated case, no, but also look at the totality of it. Like in Mindanao, marami tayong mga maritime security issues dyan, no, na hindi na natin masyado napapansin. Of course, one, because the governance issue in general is now being played out, no. Nakikita natin yung areas na yon. But what happened? No, what is happening in that particular area in the Eastern Seaboard? If you would look at all our ability to monitor our Eastern Seaboard, malulungkot kayong malaman na wala tayong masyadong capability, no? Yung ating mga sensors doon, yung ating maritime domain awareness doon, mababa, no? What does that tell us? Na that particular area is unmonitored, and if you do not monitor anything, you do not generate data. And if you don't generate data, you cannot make informed decisions, no? So yun yung kumbaga parang sa atin, it's basic, but to the bigger picture, minsan hindi siya na bibigyan ng attention because there is some, of course, everything at the end of the day is a political decision. So we really need people and people like this group, and also engaging with the public, so that we could encourage more government activities that would generate credible data and share it with the public, diba? And share it with people who could help them analyze and make recommendations for them at the end of the day. So yun, period. Yun lang naman so far yung ano natin when it comes to maritime and WPS.
Actually, that's the whole point, Pierre Reg, no? At the end of the day, many of us only hear about, that China Coast Guard, no, or naval vessel rammed to our ship, and the militia barricaded our fishermen, and so on and so forth. Hindi natin nakikita yung bigger picture. Actually, yun yung gagawin natin dito sa Piers, no? We need really to piece them together. Just quite recently, no, hindi ninyo natatanong, Pierre Reg and I work together, no, in the issue of maritime security. And nabanggit niya yung sa Eastern Seaboard, no? I went there myself and looked into the situation there. Pag tiningnan po ninyo yung mapa, and by the way, meron ng bagong Philippine map, hindi ko maintindihan bakit hindi pa tawag dito, ma-release yan officially. Ayoko na nga bumili ng Philippine map sa National Bookstore kasi made in China, no? So you can just imagine how difficult it is, no, when it comes to do policy making. Mapa na nga lang, hindi pa tayo ang gumawa, no? So having said that, you see, the take-off point there is the Philippines as being being an archipelagic country, no? Yes, Indonesia may be bigger, but compared to Indonesia, hindi naman sila surrounded ng water. Tayo talagang porous. You can go to and from the western to the eastern seaboard and vice versa, no, rather freely. At ito yung medyo critical dito. Doon sa mga in-between islands na yon, sabi nga ni Pierre Reg, hindi masyadong nababantayan. We've been putting all our eggs in the western seaboard. But we are not aware that in the eastern seaboard, naku, dami kong na-discover doon. If only I can discuss it in public. But the Chinese presence is not only in the western seaboard, by the way, and its very active presence there is not only because of the supposed resources that are buried underneath. No, very strategic yan, no? Kaya pag-uusapan natin yan, Pierre Reg, no? Together with our cybersecurity expert, no less than a German expert, no? He's consultant in the foreign in the Federal Ministry of Defense in Germany and US Congress, but because of the time difference, we couldn't have him in this pilot episode. But let me just segue, naputol ako kanina doon sa introduction. we are also going to do regular surveys. Hindi natin nabanggit yan kanina, Peer Tony and Peer Novel, no? Kasi we need to do regular surveys, not to tell the public na, hey, sikat ito si Pedro, iboto natin. Actually, mali yung ganong thinking, no? And perhaps we can start telling everyone na pag kami nakita kayong survey at nakita ninyo na sikat itong tao na ito, ibig sabihin iboboto na natin, no? We will be doing regular surveys for the purpose of determining really why a particular political personality is strong in this area, why he is weak in that area, and so on and so forth. And perhaps, especially in the issue of Mindanao development and security, and of course, when it comes to ensuring our sovereignty, mapili naman natin yung tamang iboboto natin, no? Hindi yung magdedesisyon tayo on a personal note, no? Na hindi ko na sasagutin pa, hindi ko na dudugtungan pa kasi baka iba na mapag-usapan natin. Anyway, let me throw this question, no, to everyone. When it comes to data management, again, emphasis on the data, because at the end of the day, we need to, when we inform the public, hindi natin sila ini-inform dahil may fake news, no? Wag na, siguro, Peer Reg can also tell us, magkakagera ba sa West Philippine Sea? Kasi palaging yun ang pinag-uusapan sa social media eh. Lagi ko ngang sinasabi, we've already looked into this clearly. In the same manner, Peer Adrian, meron pa bang space for violence in Mindanao? Kasi sabi nila kapag hindi nangyari ito, naku, magkakagulo na naman. And so on and so forth. Perhaps let's look at some basic information. Gera ba sa West Philippine Sea, Peer Reg, sa tingin mo?
Yeah, no. Syempre, Peer Ed, mahirap mag-predict, no? Usually, that's something that even the best forecast, no, cannot really predict the future with all the variables that interact with one another in a day-to-day basis, no? But what I can tell you is, if we look at society in general and the way that we are structured, we shouldn't feel bad and we shouldn't castigate, no, the government, particularly the defense and national security establishment, if they do prepare, no, if they have contingency planning, if they fortify our bases, if they, procure the necessary weapons, because it is their job at the end of the day to provide services and security, basically, national security. No, it is in their mandate to secure the territory and the people. So that's a different topic, no? That's a different aspect of the discussion. When it comes to magkakagera ba sa West Philippine Sea, number one, of course, it's very difficult to predict. However, there are institutions within our government that are mandated to prepare for any eventuality, especially for an armed conflict. Now, then the second question may be, Peer Ed, that we better look into in one of our sessions would be, if there might be the possibility, if war is still a possibility in our international affairs right now, what would it look like, basically, no? Kaya nabanggit ni Peer Ed kanina, we will have a session that puts together na maritime and the cyber, because nag-iiba ang itsura ng warfare, nag-iiba ang itsura ng conflict and war, no? It might not be, yes, exactly, Peer Ed, no? It might be a combination of both, non-kinetic and kinetic. But we're seeing right now, and of course, if you want to wage a war, you would go with with a cost-effective approach. Now, so ano ba yung mga cost-effective approach na yun? So yun yung mga evolutions or revolutions in military affairs that we need to look into when we talk about the general idea of magkakagera ba, or kung magkakagera man, anong klase? Baka hindi na kasi ito yung naiisip natin ng 1940s, no? Yung World War I, World War II, 'di ba? Yung mga Prussian War, baka hindi na ganun. No? So we have to be able to generate the images in mind or the scenarios in mind that would tell us what it would look like in the future. No? So yun, Peer Ed, yun ang aking, ang aking sentiment dyan sa area na yan.
To our viewers, you can just imagine no, how interesting the discussions will be in this regard. Eh doon pa lang sa kinetic tsaka non-kinetic, hindi ko na maintindihan eh. No? So perhaps we can go into that detail more when we talk about it. No? Ako lang, sa akin very simple eh. Sa akin, it's a long shot. Of course, as Peer Reg just mentioned, anything is possible except that as I've always been trying to explain, China and the US are actually both biggest traders of each other, no? Talagang ibinabalang ni President Biden yung more than 32 billion direct investment ng US sa China to 18 billion when he was elected. So in other words, that is a very serious effort on the part of China to manage that. But otherwise, you can just imagine, pag nag-away yung dalawang yan, pareho silang mawawala. No? So, I don't know if that angle is right. We can ask Pierre Tone and Pierre Novel in that regard later. But ituloy ko lang yung segue ko kanina. Meron pa ba tayong, sa tingin mo, Pierre Adrian, meron pa din ba tayong dapat katakutan dyan sa Mindanao? Kanina you were pointing out the positive changes that are happening. Do you see this really being sustained?
Well, yes. We also did a study, a survey, as you have mentioned, and it came out that the safety ratings that's involving around 6,000 respondents are across Mindanao, and were scientifically randomly chosen, came out to be at 88%. So that's the feeling of safety of individuals in Mindanao all across. That's including Lanao del Sur, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, Ambusan, Davao Oriental, Zamboanga, del Sur. No? So that's a positive posture. That's their feeling of safety as compared to the previous. No? And also they trust already the government. That's another 86%. And that is already telling that the people here are already one and the same in the lens of growth and progress and development and unity. And
So-
yes,
So peers can go to the pink beaches now, no?
yes, in Zamboanga, yes, of course, and also could enjoy the Cloud9 in Siargao. Oo, and also you could visit Mati City. Maganda ang season ngayon for those places. And let me also inform here is that there are already weekend even dismantled guerrilla fronts. So yung mga guerrilla fronts po na usually na naririnig nyo are already coming to the folds of the law. Nagiging kasama na po, nagtitinda na po sa daan, nagiging kasama and doing livelihoods. That's around 4 guerrilla fronts that are already weakened and one guerrilla front 13 that was already dismantled. So that's already a positive thing. Bakit po sila dismantled? It's because of the trust and confidence. And nararating na po yung mga remote places that were once secluded from the government. Pag papasok po doon, 20 years back, babakbakan agad, i-ambush agad. Kaya hindi napapasok ng social services, ng health services. Pero ngayon po, those were converted already into tourist sites. Diyan po sa boundary of Abusan and Davao City. That's we call Talaingod. And the violence that yes, that's the Talaingod, and the violence that had been ascribed to, that had been naisama na po sa pag-iisip na pagpunta sa Mindanao, magulo, hindi po ganun. Hindi po yung totoo. I myself could really tell you, I traveled at night, punta po ng Zamboanga City via BARM, yung naririnig nyo po na parang we traveled at night. Hindi po, wala po nangyari sa amin. That's why I am the first person to tell that it's safe to move around in Mindanao. Kaya yung violence, wala na pong violence na malalaki. I see it more on the crime related, yung ordinary activities of a community.
Yeah, yeah. Alam mo, hindi mo natatanong, Pierre Adrian eh. Diyan ako nakatikim ng napakasarap na chicken pastel diyan sa
Oh.
no when I went there. Itong mga detalyeng nababanggit ni Pierre Reg and Pierre Adrian, makikita natin to sa economic data, Pierre Tony, no, and Pierre Novel in terms of taxes collected, or even in gross regional product. Tama ba yun? Perhaps you can add on to that, how we see, no, this minute details, no, in economic data. Siguro let's start with the Pierre Novel and then the Pierre Tony after.
Yeah, oo. Actually, I'm very happy to hear from kay Pierre Adrian about yung developments. Very very upbeat yung prospects sa Mindanao, and but of course ito nga yung this is where yung data is very very important, kasi if you are going to kung titignan mo pa rin yung human development indicators, of course some provinces, some regions in Mindanao are of course still comparatively medyo lagging behind than the rest of the, in fact baka siguro mas mababa pa sa average, national average ng mga ibang lugar sa Mindanao. And I do agree that ang laki ng potential sa Mindanao, and very surprising, but I'm not surprised to learn that budget wise, despite yung potential ng Mindanao, almost less than 20% lang yung nakukuha niyang budget from the national government. And that's something that me coming from Congress, palagi kasi kaming hinihingan yan na and I think this is where yung pinag-uusapan natin about data is really important, kasi like for example sa education and health, in fact poverty ang taas pa rin. I mean, relatively mataas ang poverty sa Mindanao, and yet you have all these potential, and in fact ang hindi na-develop masyado kasi sa Mindanao, I mean from my point of view of course, is kasi hindi natin na ma-maximize yung agriculture, especially yung mga small landholders. I think yun nung yung economy ng Mindanao is based on smallholder agriculture. And in fact, if we're going to develop that and link it with yung ating, well, very strategic din kasi yung Mindanao, especially dyan sa may south. And I don't have to mention yung BIM Iaga, which has been, kasi may move ngayon recently to, in fact, they're trying to put up a parliamentary forum on BIM Iaga para pumasok na yung parliaments ng apat na countries would be working more closely together in the pursuit of development ng region na yon. And again, those are the things that need to be to be parang pursued more. I think yung linkages, especially ng mga agri-producers sa Mindanao with of course markets within and outside of the country, is very important, and I think this is also very critical para ma-develop natin yung human development aspect ng other provinces, and again siguro Tony will also be parang discussing this, of course, yung need for institutional capacity in the region. In fact, again, yun nga, from the national government, medyo hindi commensurate yung resources that's getting from the national government, but at the same time meron din kasing mga resources that local government units, including BARM, na kasi tiningnan din namin yan before na there are a lot of improvements that need to be done course from the policy level at saka doon sa institutional capacity ng mga LGUs to generate more own source revenues. Kasi napapansin naman natin ever since ang reliance ng mga local government units sa national government was talagang
Yeah.
hindi natin talaga but again with the recent ruling ng Supreme Court doon sa national tax allotment since nag-increase naman yung share ng mga
Pag-usapan din
LGUs
natin
with,
yan.
so I'm sure si Ed would be I'm just parang putting this
Yeah.
na kasi I'm very very interested doon sa mga na-raise na ni Adrian at ni especially I mean honestly I really would like to pursue this more in the kasi yun yung aming we are into fiscal public finance and Mindanao has been an area that could be especially dito sa inflation kasi ang nagda-drive ng inflation kasi natin is food and si Adrian has been telling us ang laki ng potential ng Mindanao to produce the food supply ng buong country, and if only we're able to develop that in agriculture, in land, of course yung sa land distribution ng agrarian reform, all these things sana if we can come up with a very viable solution. And I'm sure yung mga solution andyan naman na andyan na. We only need to parang pukpukin siya palagi na so that our policy makers
Mahirap talaga yan. Mahirap
Oh.
talaga yan, Pierre Novel. When I spoke one time sa Bilibit, dinidiscuss ko yung fiscal public finance. Lumapit sa akin yung isang preso, sabi niya, "Sir, sino si public finance? Saan po sa fiscal?" Sabi ko, hindi ho. Sabi ko, fiscal public finance. So, kanina pag humingiti ito si Sir Tony. Sir Tony,
Thank you, Sir Ed. But before I share my thoughts on that, I would like to thank you. I mean, especially what Pierre Adrian said. Very peaceful ang Mindanao. And one of my bucket list, actually, Pierre Adrian, is to go to Tawi-Tawi.
yes.
Yeah, I think the Tawi-Tawi, I think, has the most beautiful beach in the world. I mean, in the entire world, not only in the Philippines. So
Definitely.
probably just to show, I would want to travel to that area and experience myself. As far as economic development is concerned, I think I agree with Pierre Adrian that there is so much potential for Mindanao, and that production-wise, you produce a lot, especially in the agricultural sector. But the problem really is how are you going to deliver these goods to urban areas like Metro Manila? So I think there is that problem of connectivity in terms of transport. So if we can have a cheaper transport from Mindanao to, say, Luzon or Metro Manila, I think all people will benefit from it. And not only from the people of Mindanao, but also people in NCR, Metro Manila, would also benefit from cheaper prices. See? And I would like also, Sir Ed, this is a teaser, no? There is already sa PSA, there is already data for provincial and city GDP, no? I think hindi to masyadong alam ng public, pero there is already that, and so we can take a look at the provincial and city GDP and compare, not only compare among cities and provinces in terms of growth, although wala pang data ng NCR, but mostly these are outside of NCR, and we can take a look at saan ba napupunta yung investment dito, saan ba napupunta yung mga dito, etc. That's what Pierre Novel said. In terms of the budget ng ating government, halos wala napupunta sa Mindanao, no? kaya palagi nilang tinatanong, ano bang, kung nag-improve ba ng MRT sa Metro Manila, anong magagawa? May experience ba yan ng taga Mindanao? So, I mean, this is, I think, something that we have to look into and probably analyze deeper and see what we can, and probably connect it with the economic provisions that are to be discussed in this Constitution reforms. Thank you, Sir Period.
Nako, Pierre,
Period.
Tony, I suppose we have our work cut out for ourselves, no? Kasi itong mga data na to, ang naisip naman natin talaga, hindi lang natin ito i-calculate. We will transform this into tables and charts, no? Which we will make available to the public. Of course, eventually, kapag makita nila, uy, very useful nitong mga datos na to, no? And then, at the end of the day, we're able to serve as a very effective instrument, no, in promoting more information to the public. You know, ladies and gentlemen, this is but, no, sabi nga nila, a teaser, no, so to speak, or just an introduction of the peers as a group. Ang haba na nitong discussion natin. Sabi nga namin nung una 45 minutes. Ito, sumobra na kami, medyo na-delay because let me inform everyone that we're starting off all as volunteers. To be honest with you, the one in the background, no, are not ordinary folks. Ordinary in the sense that this is their day job, no. The one directing this is no less than a director in government, no. So I'd like to thank Director Direct na talaga, no, Direct Jericho, for helping us in this pilot episode, no, sa background. At talagang napuyat itong mamang ito at siya pang lagi kong nakukulit, no, the guy who's our link to the media himself. Kaklase ko ho ito nung college ako, actually estudyante ko, no, si Pierre JC, kaininan, maraming salamat, no. Of course, we wouldn't all be here if not for the pivotal role of Sir Tony. Siyang pinakakuya ng lahat dito, and Attorney Aldrin, who's really responsible for putting us in the map, so to speak. And of course, I cannot forget the contribution of Dr. Chin, no, for having us use, no, this platform. Magandang umaga po muli sa inyo. We will see you again next Sunday. I am not the only host that you will see because, to be honest with you, all of us 15 in the peers are all capable of playing host and playing resource person. You will see more of us every 10 a.m. every Sunday, no, making sense of the most difficult issues and making sure that you have an option to understand the news, understand the issues, be involved in the issues, and not only be subject to misinformation and fake news. True information is true power, as we say. Magandang umaga po, maayong buntag, and good day to everyone. Salamat.